Hi and welcome. This is Seek Sustainable Japan and our monthly sub-series, Sustainable Short Takes. I'm JJWalsh here in Hiroshima, joined by,
Hi, I'm Tove Kinooka in Yokohama.
and this is a special lunchtime chat. So if you tried to join us this morning, sorry for the quick shuffle around.
It was
No,
my
but
fault.
we got there in the end. No worries, no worries. Things plan. We can be flexible, right? That's all about being working women, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was very happy to wake up this morning and see the wonderful news from Canada that we have a
Ah,
climate forward, economic based sustainability expert now in the top position as Prime Minister. Congratulations and thank you, Canadians, for bringing some sanity back to this world. But also, Japan, of course, is joining the G7, which will happen
mm,
in Canada in June. And it's just so wonderful to have a leader who has so much deep experience in economics, in banking, but more sustainable focus, the long term view. It's just great to have a leader that gets it, in contrast to all the insanity happening across the border, right? So thank you, Canadians.
yes, yes. I'm not going to comment on this, not my country's, but I am very much with you.
Yeah. Now,
Mm,
last week we both celebrated Earth Day.
mhm.
I had the pleasure of talking with the amazing Robin Lewis and talking about his wonderful initiative, which just hit 5-year anniversary, My Mizu. So that was a wonderful conversation with him. Robin is always so inspiring, not only about starting a startup, being an innovation leader, but just in general, like giving advice for people thinking about doing a startup or trying to lead in some way or working in sustainable business, how not to burn out. So he had so many great insights there. It was wonderful catching up with him.
Yeah, that was great. I managed to listen to sort of about half of it. I think I was in Kyoto at the time with my daughter. It was great. It was really wonderful to hear. He's got a real sort of, like you say, it's not just the Maimizu and that stuff, but what they're doing with Sustainable Innovation Japan. Really strong advocate, both him and his organization, on gender equality as well, with their no manal policy and now their amazing program for women entrepreneurs. So
Absolutely. And
yeah,
a new dad.
yes. Exactly.
Taking this step forward, as we all saw in the newspaper about Otani taking
Mm,
some paternity leave, but Robin is more like a full-time dad.
yeah.
They're really as a full-time equal partner, and I think that's the dad vision that we want for
Mm,
everybody or all partners to
yeah,
share the responsibility for your own benefit as well, right?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And be supported by your business to do so if you want to, right?
Mm, yeah. Yeah. It was interesting what he said about being a small business owner, though, and not getting any support in that sense. So it would be great to see some action on that from the government. They're keen for people to start businesses. They're pushing, entrepreneurs, and there are venture things happening left, right, and center. But nobody's talking about that part. And actually, starting your own company and having a family are incredibly challenging. I've been there and still in the process of it. So it would be really good to see that factored in, actually.
Yeah, for sure. And
Mm,
as someone working for myself now, most of my career was under the umbrella of working for a university, a company. And so if you take a day off, you're sick, you still get paid. But
mm,
working for yourself, you have to take a day off, you don't get paid, you lose the contract. So there is that kind of motivation,
mhm.
unfortunately, for a lot of people working for themselves to push themselves too hard.
Yeah,
You know? So
yeah,
what could we do in that space is always good to think about. Like,
mm,
how could we have insurance that would maybe
yeah.
support you if you had to take time off or a death in the family even, right?
Exactly, exactly. Taking time off in, for any reason, I think, as a company owner, founder, whatever, is really actually hard. And I know for myself, I almost feel guilty about it. It's like, but I should be full on doing the business and I can't possibly turn down a client meeting or engagement or whatever. But you do need time actually for other things as well to stay mentally and physically well. So
For sure.
yeah, it would be good
And
to see
also
more discussion.
training people,
Mm.
collaborating with others so you can actually take over for each other
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
cover. even as a, a self-employed, you can still
Yeah.
create this great networks and support each other
Yeah.
that way too, right?
Very much, very much. That's
Yeah.
super
Now
important.
you went to a very interesting event on Climate Day or Earth Day,
Yeah.
Ichigo Bloom, 4 workshops, 1 planet. Tell us about this.
This was brilliant. So Ichigo Bloom are an organization doing sustainability consulting and activities here in Tokyo. And they run the climate fresks here in Japanese and English and also French, I think. Um, and basically these fresco sort of workshops, I think we've talked about them before, but for those who don't know, they're very, very hands-on. It's a sort of gamified way of understanding and looking at climate issues. That's their sort of original one, which is based on the IPCC report information, but makes it really accessible using sort of high impact visual cards, and then going through a facilitated process as a group to look at how do these things all link together and what does this actually mean, this number or this data anyway, and why is it important. They've also got the biodiversity version of that, the plastics one, and the planetary boundaries one as well. So they had a whole bunch of us there in the room. Most of us had never met before. It was people from all over the place, all different nationalities and backgrounds. And we came together and we were divided into teams. And I think there were 2 teams working on the climate fresk. There was one working on biodiversity. I was in the one doing the plastic collage. And then there was a group doing the planetary boundaries one. So we each kind of were in the same room and we each had our own facilitator working with us. And we went through the sort of the 3-hour process doing our specific sort of mini workshop, if you like, on, for me, it was the plastics one. Really, really interesting sort of to understand microplastics, nanoplastics, and all the details under these and the different types of plastics, and looking at infrastructure for, recycling or whatever. So that was really interesting. And then, so this was all going on simultaneously in the same room. And then they, at the end, Patti did an amazing job, one of their facilitators, of bringing it all together. So the planetary boundaries team kind of acted like the consultants. And what we did, she had a big sort of impact matrix on the whiteboard, and she was saying, okay, so team 1 on the climate fest, tell us, what were the sort of biggest actions that your team came away with? What could we do? Because each team had to come up at the end of it with what actions can we take to improve this. So each team shared their actions. We looked at where would those things have the most impact, and some of them had multiple different impacts. Maybe it was on, social issues, or maybe it would impact immediately on carbon reduction, or something like, or emissions or whatever. And then the planetary boundaries team would have to sort of act as consultants to explain, okay, so how does this connect into the bigger picture when we're looking at planetary boundaries? So how does, reducing plastic waste here or carbon emissions here actually sort of filter out into the bigger picture? So it was really well done, a really engaging way to look at, quite difficult, complex topics, but to really get a good understanding of it. And, wonderful feedback from people at the end. And I think everyone really took a lot away from it.
Wow, that's awesome. And doing that practical back and forth approach in the workshop,
Yeah.
trying to brainstorm, but also thinking about what would be the knock-on effects of
Yeah.
doing that, right? Making that change.
Exactly. And I've just seen a question in the chat here. Do they do anything like this via virtual workshops? I'm pretty sure they do virtual workshops. I've only done the in-person ones, but as far as I know, they do. So please go and have a look at Ichigo Bloom's website and reach out to them. And you can also do virtual ones in different languages with people based elsewhere as well, if the times work for you. So highly
Fantastic. That
recommend
kind
it.
of reminds me, like a couple days ago, I did a podcast with World Vegan Travel. I don't know if you've heard of them. They come through Japan every year and they bring a group of like 30 to 40, and they're all vegans.
Mhm.
And so they're actually like, I know you have something on tourism to talk about too, but they're really elevating the whole game about what is on offer to travelers when they come through, because by coming through creating the tour, they're promoting Japan as a
Mhm.
vegan-friendly destination. So I was working with them to help them create some good places to eat in Hiroshima. And we were talking about some of the hurdles. And definitely supply chain
Yeah.
is a really big issue. Places already, maybe they're reasonably open to the idea of offering vegan vegetarian, but they don't want to change their suppliers.
Right.
And so having new supply chain options, like I just received a box today from Vegan Osaka,
Ooh,
did a
nice.
video about all their plant-based meats and amazing cheeses. And so
Mhm.
this is something I always suggest when I do consulting with places that are trying to at least offer something. These are comfort foods, it's ready made, it's high
Mhm.
quality. So having things like that available to the places wanting to offer something, that's huge. And I think that's something we often forget in the discussions of making more positive change, is thinking about the supply chains or the systems or the infrastructure that already exists, and how we could change that, and realizing that's a hurdle. And I think
Yeah.
that it's not only for vegan food, that
Mhm.
really applies to a lot of the sustainable strategies we're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely agree. Wow.
Yeah. So that was a great discussion. Also, you want to talk about your tourism?
Yeah, well, I was going to say that sort of links very much into. There's a great article here by Eat Creative, so an organization based in Tokyo and Hong Kong. And Alison Jambert there did a great article on sustainability in the luxury hospitality industry. And I would highly recommend having a look at that article. It was sort of highlighting a lot of the points, like, it's people are pushing for this, they're asking for this more as well, but there's always that sort of balance. How do you sort of, what's the trade-off? Does there need to be a trade-off between um sort of offering less? And it's always a big conversation here in Japan with the omotenashi and wanting to make, sure that people have everything they need. But if it's sustainable, we don't want to be, sort of using all these single use things that hotels often provide and stuff like that. So the article was looking at, I love the fact, the bit you've got up there, sustainability is a competitive advantage. And the fact that, by really helping people understand, why are we doing this? So not just suddenly not providing something or doing something differently, but saying, by reusing this, like the Hilton we stayed at recently in Kyoto has a reusable water bottle you can borrow if you haven't got your own with you. And they've got a central place you can just go and get filtered water. There's a jug in your room, you can refill the bottle that's there for you to use when you're out and about. So they're sort of making it feel good, making the customer feel good as well. And they can understand then, that this is positive for them and it's a positive experience as well. It's not like they're doing without something or having a less luxurious experience. It's actually, this is adding to the experience, and you're doing something good. So it's great to see there's some examples in here of international firms, but also in Japan specifically as well, some of the great things going on here. So have a look at that,
Definitely
go and
seeing
visit.
that with luxury level visitors as
Yeah.
well. They even use the word they feel dirty,
Yeah.
because they're sold so much things with
Mm,
immediate waste,
yeah. Yeah.
immediate plastic, and
Mm,
that's not the way they want to travel.
yeah.
And so they're looking for these brands that are using less plastic,
Mm,
offering them high value experiences,
yeah.
but the quality of what they're using, the product inside, is the main thing. And they don't want to
Exactly.
create all this single use waste, right?
Exactly, exactly. So, if I think it comes down to communication really is very important here. If the service provider, whether that's hotel or shop or restaurant or whatever, is explaining why, like you can see that little tag there, one less thing, and explaining, just having that beautifully made thing on your, robe in the bathroom or whatever, um, then people understand, oh, okay, this is why this is going on, and make them feel good about the change. Much more likely than to
And we
get off
have
the
so many
phone.
great examples.
Yeah.
We have great examples of Hilton or Hyatt and how they
Mm.
promote local artisan culture, locally
Yes.
made products as well.
Yeah,
And that's what the visitor is also looking for, especially at the high
exactly.
end.
Yeah.
They want to try the sake byproduct soap, which is amazing and foamy,
Yeah,
and high
yeah,
quality. And that's a unique part of their travel
yeah,
experience that they're
very
going
much.
to enjoy and talk about, right?
Yeah, Very much, yeah. So it's a great differentiator, I think, and the more we see, and yes, I think there's a comment there, sort of finances come into it, and that's true. And I think not all sustainable choices are more expensive. Sometimes it's actually cheaper, like providing the water bottles, the jug, etc. You buy once at the hotel, and then that will do thousands of people rather than providing sort of bottles of water as they used to in the room. So some of these, and we've been speaking to some of the hotels in sustainability work here, and they find actually when they track the costs, they can bring things down. And okay, there are certain things which might cost more, but then if they can balance out overall, then it doesn't have to necessarily be make things more expensive. And if we can look at it also get the hotels and the restaurants themselves to look at it as an investment, not a cost. So in the short term, yes, it might require outlay on reusable items and so on. But in the long term, that's actually saving you money on dealing with your waste and on buying constantly the single-use items. So
And it
yeah.
saves them time on labor.
Yeah.
Because you have less waste, that means you need to allocate less time for your staff to deal with the waste. It has so many positive knock-on effects that way too.
Yeah. So it's sort of understanding, as I'm always banging on about, like getting the ecosystem thinking into play, right? And sort of looking not just at this item and maybe that costs more and whatever, but actually looking at the bigger picture and longer term and seeing how these things connect in, and then finding, what are the benefits or the leverage points in this system where we can make the most impact for sort of making small changes.
For sure. Switch gears a little bit. This week in Hiroshima was really an amazing experience for me. I had the chance to see not only Patti Smith come to Hiroshima Peace Park, but with one of our local heroes, Keiko Ogura, who is a longtime A-bomb anti-nuclear activist. She's a survivor herself. They had a talk show together in Peace Park, and I was lucky enough to be part of one of the people that were able to go in and hear them talking together. And it was just so powerful and so important. These two women who are of similar age, and how Patti Smith was just highlighting how wonderful and how amazing it is that Keiko, now 88, talks about her experience surviving when she was almost 8 years old, and how she spent all her life making this horrible experience, putting something positive and forward thinking and hoping it never happens again. And that's all her passion.
Yeah.
And isn't that amazing? And how did that happen? And a lot of people who have these horrible events happen, they don't turn it into positive
Right.
momentum, right? So she was just so humble and so much highlighting what Keiko Ogura is doing. And it was just amazing to watch them together. Patti Smith, she read some poetry, she sang a song, and it's all, I'll put the link below. It's all available
Please.
on YouTube
Yeah.
now. Videographer shared it, so I'll share that below. But it was really powerful and wonderful, and sometimes we need people who are internationally famous to come in to our areas or to talk about certain topics, and then you get a much bigger audience thinking about it.
Yeah.
So it means a lot that people like her come. And I know she spent her whole life talking about feminism and equal rights and peace and activism. So she was a great role model for many of us. Of course, women-led as well, too, which is so wonderful to see.
Brilliant. No, that's really good to see. Yeah, that's giving it a much wider global stage, right? The issues here. Otherwise, they can tend to get sort of drowned out in the noise of everything else going on. But if people can use their influence and their voice, on a global stage to keep these things out there, I think that's wonderful to see.
Absolutely. And then just today, I got notice from the United Nations office here in Hiroshima that there's a upcoming free event sponsored by the elders. It's a live panel discussion, audience Q&A, moderated by Dr. Nasreen Azimi, who was running the United Nations office here in Hiroshima called UNITAR. Now she oversees Green Legacy Hiroshima, but we have the governor of Hiroshima will be there. Also, Ban Ki-moon, who used to be the UN General Secretary General. So we've got some really big names and talking about the taboo of talking about nuclear weapons now that we have a new world order. And
Mm,
this is something we talk about all the time in tourism, especially in Hiroshima, especially this year. This is
mm,
the 80th year. Is it still practical to be anti-nuclear? Do we need nuclear weapons to deter being attacked
mm.
by others? This is a huge discussion right now. So it'll be a wonderful
Yeah,
event to be a part of.
yeah, it's amazing timing, very much.
Now, speaking more of the climate side of it,
Mm.
you had a article from Nippon.com about the changing seasons?
Right. So this was a Japan Times article looking at sort of helping people understand actually what the changes we're seeing mean. And you can see the sort of the caption under the headline is, "If we're to have any hope of tackling the crisis, the data must be interpreted correctly." Because it's interesting, I think, maybe it's something we've already talked about in previous sessions, but there's perhaps in Japan, we might not necessarily understand to what extent we're seeing the impacts of climate change already. A lot of people sort of still, I think, look at it as like, yeah, things are sort of, it's a bit hot this year. Oh, isn't it surprising? It's a bit hot now, but not really linking that to the bigger picture and what's going on. But actually, last summer was the hottest on record, and that's been a consistent trend going on. So people need to understand what that means actually, and this is happening here and now. And I think at the moment there's really not a very strong awareness of that, and people might even be looking at some of the positives. One of the things they talk about is like, okay, the kakigori sellers can sell their kakigori, the ice cones, longer and things like this. Wonderful, great. That's a micro sort of benefit in a very scary big picture.
And just this year, we
Hmm.
saw forest fires around Japan, which we
Exactly,
don't
in
usually
Iwate,
see,
yeah,
right? We
yeah,
know that even in Japan, we
mm,
are experiencing climate change
yeah.
firsthand. So what can we do? Well, we have to have
Mm,
more water refill stations. For one, that seems like a no-brainer
yeah.
in terms of local health, also visitor health. We
Mhm.
want to offer more places for communities, especially
Yeah.
elderly people, to go to the department stores and stay cool
Mm,
during the hot summer days. We
yeah.
don't wanna have a rise in fatalities, right?
Exactly, exactly. So there are lots of sort of very practical measures, like you say, that we need to be thinking about. How do we sort of mitigate these things? How do we deal with them in the here and now? But also the understanding part is so important. We've got, the article gives some great examples looking through at sort of the connections, looking at decline in Antarctic sea ice and things, and what is this showing us? What is it telling us? It seems very far away, and people are not connecting the dots yet. And it seems like, we've been hearing for quite some time about the models sort of looking at what will be the changes if we stay within 1.5 degrees or if we go to 2 degrees sort of warming globally and so on. And now they're saying, well, actually, things are accelerating much faster than we predicted within those models.
Yeah,
And this is really ramping up, and we need to recognize that and
sure.
really ramp up our actions to
Yeah,
reduce the impact that we're having, and the measures for people to be able to cope with it here and now.
absolutely.
Mm,
We have a huge oyster industry in Hiroshima, one of the biggest in Japan,
yeah.
and they had a horrible harvest last year. And I had a chance to talk with a sustainable oyster farmer who came over and gave some consulting advice from Maine in America and Deer Isle oysters. Shout
Yeah.
out to her. She's doing amazing work. But a lot of the suggestions she made, like grow kelp around it, which is
Mm,
popular in Japan, to keep it cool, to keep
yeah.
the water more nutrients inside.
Mm,
Use bamboo exclusively, use reusables, use
yeah.
natural materials. And a lot of the local farmers were saying, "Oh yeah, we used to do that." Like
Mm,
the Oji-sans, the grand guys,
yeah.
the 2 generations ago, they would always do that. And so
Yeah.
it already exists. We just
Mm.
need to bring these things back, right?
Exactly, exactly. It's not like we don't know what to do and how to do it. So I always think back to the doing the climate reality leadership training back in, I think, 2018. I did that with Al Gore, who's just one of my heroes. He's amazing. Wouldn't the world be different if he'd got in? But one of the things he always says at the end of the training is, it's like, must we change? And it's like, yes, absolutely. We, the science, the data, the evidence is all around us. Yes. Can we? Yes, we have the answers. We have the technology. We have the solutions. Much of it in the past, we can actually upgrade those things for a modern world. The huge question, the hard one, is will we?
Yeah.
Actually, because that's the mindset behavior shift. We've become so used to convenience.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And then great comment here from
Mm.
Bev about how do you convince the naysayers, especially in the US where you've got this climate of denial,
Yeah.
And the facts are great, but you
Mm.
really need to show people how it makes their lives better. So
Yeah.
like, I have solar on my roof. I have an electric car. It's like
Mm.
driving free sunshine. I mean, if you can appeal to people on a personal level as
Yeah.
well. I eat more vegan food these days. I feel healthier. Like I
Mm.
hydrate a lot. I find free places to refill. I
Mm.
mean, if you can bring it down to how people can see value on
Yeah.
a day to day, then
Yeah.
I think everybody's going to support it, right?
Exactly. And yeah, there's a comment in the hi Tiffany. I can see Tiffany's there commenting in the chat. And we had a great conversation, the two of us, the other week on this, about how sort of people just go, yeah, but then still don't actually change. And a lot of people maybe don't have strong opinions on this yet, because they don't really understand what the facts are and how serious this is, but also what they can do personally. It seems like, well, surely this is something the government should be tackling. And yes,
And
the
I think
government needs to be doing stuff,
we still
but
have that idea that
mm,
it doesn't really matter.
right.
Like the idea that plastic straws are still the norm
Mm,
here.
yeah.
And people are like, it's just a plastic straw. Well,
Mm,
it's so easy to change though. So
yeah.
why have it? Why don't
Yeah.
we use the paper ones? Like, why don't we
Exactly.
carry our own, that kind of thing.
I would love
Have
to
you've got
see
you've got biodiversity event coming up?
coming up. Exactly. I mean, that's another topic which nobody really understands very well. And they're like, biodiversity, nature, and you talk to companies about it, they're like, yeah, but we don't make things with nature. We do this or we do that. We're a service industry. And it's like, yeah, but we're all part of this. We're living within nature, and therefore we impact it and are impacted by what's happening. And this biodiversity crisis is absolutely very strongly linked to also the climate crisis. Having that biodiversity in our natural world gives us the stability, and it drives the whole
Foundation for
system.
everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like talking
Mhm.
about luxury travel earlier.
Yeah.
Even quite rich, well-off people who are traveling, they know that if they are searching for more sustainable solutions, they are keyed into the idea. They know their wealth is not gonna protect them.
No.
And they realize that. And so when they visit places, they
Mm.
want to stay longer, they want to do slow travel, more meaningful travel, support local art and culture. They're
Mm.
already focused on that. They're already thinking about being a better traveler and very
Yeah.
humble. So that's
And they can
really
be great influencers, right?
Mhm.
Putting that out there. So I think having people who are visible in the public eye, and that people follow and respect the opinions of, if we can get them on board to help people understand why should we care about this, and also what can we do at a very practical first steps level. When I go and do my shopping, why do I need to say I don't need a straw, thanks, or I don't need a plastic bag, or please don't put that in plastic, I can take it as it is, and things like this. And just helping people understand, I think, that they have agency. There's stuff they can do, and it's a benefit for them, like you were saying about the health and the broader benefits that these actions can bring. If we can help them connect the dots and role model it as well, then there's a lot we can do.
Yeah, for sure. But getting it out there, it's like all the media is not covering it. Come on.
Mhm.
Media's got to cover it. We
Yep.
have to have role models who are in the public eye who are doing it.
Mm.
And then people feel more excited about trying it themselves. We need it in
Yeah.
schools. We need kids
Yes.
learning it, right? We need it
Yeah.
from all sides.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say go and join a climate fresk, or one of the fresks. You don't have to have any knowledge of sustainability to do it. Get your friends along, drag your kids, your friends, your colleagues along, and go and do it. And it really helps people connect dots in a fun way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just on a last note, you had a great little thing you saw at a place called Perfect Suits.
Yeah, so thinking of awareness, so I was walking through my local mall a couple of days ago, and this just stopped me in my tracks. A place called Perfect Suit Factory, as you can see here, and they've got this right up front. Bring back your old suits, and you can get 3,000 yen off your new one. So it's like, great. So that's so nice to see. So the suit's not going to be dumped, in the fabric gomi, which will go straight to landfill or get burned. They can bring it back here. They can use the fabric again, or at least recycle it responsibly. And you're getting a benefit as a customer as well. So they're incentivizing the right kind of behavior. So
Absolutely.
kudos to Perfect Suit Factory.
And it's part of the brand. It's part
Yeah.
of the brand, not only for that shop, but for the mall to bring people in, to get people thinking about it. I always do tours now. If I'm doing city tours, we go past Patagonia. We fill up our bottles at Patagonia because they offer free refills.
Yep.
But they also talk about how they have a repair space, how they're selling used clothing, right? We
Yeah.
want to see more businesses doing things like this.
Yeah. Yeah. The more that do it, the more that'll snowball. So it was really good to see that in a very sort of mainstream fashion, sort of not anything known for its sustainability up until now. So that was really encouraging to see that.
Yeah. Well, that is our 30 minutes. Thanks everyone for joining, especially Tiffany and Bev. You guys were amazing. Thanks for all the wonderful questions and comments. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much again, Tova. Wonderful catching up with you. Have a great month, and we'll catch up next month.
Yeah. Brilliant. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.